Chapter 83. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ding. Second main mission initiated, plunder the luck from the new chosen one. Ding. Current submission, know your enemy and know yourself, and you will never be defeated. Gather intel on Su Zhidong of the Tianlan Kingdom, the chosen one. Reward for completion, 5,000 villain points. Qin Ting raised an eyebrow. Su Zhidong, that sounds like a woman's name. Is this chosen one a woman? Qin Ting inquired. System, is this chosen one female? The system confirmed, yes, female. Qin Ting was genuinely surprised. He figured these chosen ones were always guys. Qin Ting followed up, so, is it still about killing the chosen one and stealing their good fortune? The system responded, the second method of plundering is now enabled. If the chosen one completely submits to the host, you can still seize their luck. Qin Ting's eyes lit up, and a smile crept across his face. Well, that makes things way more interesting. Qin Ting raised his voice. Someone. Niayu entered from outside, bowing. Young master. Since he was just a general of the Qin family and not part of the Shentian sect, he hadn't entered the Xuandu immortal territory with Qin Ting. Instead, waiting on the spaceship, Qin Ting stated calmly, send out an order to dig up everything you can find on someone named Su Zhidong from the Tianlan Kingdom. I want all the details. Niayu nodded, retreating to relay the order. That's the perk of being from a powerful family. You just give an order, and a million people jump to it. 2 months later, Eastern Wasteland, Yuanshi Gate, news had broken, and the entire Yuanshi sect was in an uproar. Of the 120 disciples sent to the Xuandu immortal territory, every single one except for the holy son of Yuanshi was dead. The first reaction of the Yuanshi sect elders was disbelief. These were the best of the best, once-in-a-century geniuses. They looked down on everyone and were tough as nails. How could they all have died in the Xuandu immortal domain? The second reaction was pure panic. The loss of these elites would create a massive talent gap for the Yuanshi sect for centuries to come. You could even argue that their future was practically ruined. Though only 70,000 years old, the Yuanshi sect had grown rapidly. They had a strong foothold in the Eastern Wasteland. They'd never taken such a hit. The deaths had completely derailed their plans for the next 1,000 years. It was so serious that the 2 Shrine Realm elders who'd led the group faced severe punishment. Despite being powerhouses with high status, they were still held responsible and were sentenced to guard the deep-sea prison for 1,000 years. The deep-sea hell was where the Yuanshi sect had imprisoned anyone who defied them or resisted them over the past tens of thousands of years. Located miles beneath the ocean surface, spiritual energy was non-existent, and the environment was brutal. It was a harsh penalty. Even the Supreme Elder Yuanli, who'd been secluded for over 600 years, a super-strong false god at his peak, emerged from the Yuanshi sect's ancestral lands. The Supreme Elder Yuanli summoned Yuan Tongzi, the leader of the Yuanshi sect, the Great Elder Feng Qianhai, and the 3 great virtual gods to discuss how to respond. The atmosphere in the Yuanshi sect was tense. Everyone knew a war was brewing. Chapter 84. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The word that an ancient divine being had plotted to wipe out all the disciples of the Yuanshi sect in the Xuandu immortal domain spread like wildfire across the Eastern Wasteland. The Eastern Wasteland was in an uproar. Anyone with sense knew exactly what this meant. Some smaller sects, caught in the middle between the Yuanshi sect and the ancient shrine, relocated, fearing they'd get caught in the crossfire. Suddenly, chaos erupted throughout the Eastern Wasteland. One day, Niayu arrived, bowing in respect. Young master. Qin Ting raised an eyebrow, guessing there was news about Su Zhidong. Sure enough, Niayu said, Master, we have located Su Zhidong. Qin Ting said casually, tell me. Niayu reported, following your instructions, we found Su Zhidong. She's 19, from the Tianlan Kingdom, and a concubine of Marquis Sunenting of Kangwu. Born to one of the Marquis' less favored consorts, she was largely ignored and bullied during her childhood. Su Zhidong's mother, from the Lu family, wasn't valued by Marquis Sunenting either. She walked on eggshells, constantly targeted by the Marquis' principal wife. Su Zhidong wasn't allowed to cultivate until 6 years ago, when her talent was accidentally discovered by her father, Su Nanting. and she began training. In just 6 years, Su Zhidong has advanced from a mortal to the Yuan Dan realm. Niayu paused, a touch of awe in his voice. In this world, cultivation realms are divided into the body-forging realm, the spiritual realm, the Yuan Dan realm, the divine will realm, the magical power realm, the divine platform realm, the divine palace realm, the virtual god realm, and the divine transformation realm. It usually takes someone with decent talent decades to reach the Yuan Dan realm, but Su Zhidong did it in 6. Her potential is on par with a true disciple from a holy land. Niayu continued, after Su Zhidong's talent came to light, she gained her father's attention and favor. Now, she's a key disciple of the Kangwu Marquis Mansion, and her mother, Lu, is also enjoying Sun Ting's affections. Qin Ting had a sudden sense of déjà vu, like he was watching a cheesy daytime soap opera. She's basically the female version of a chosen one, Niayu added. Su Zhidong seems to have a childhood sweetheart, Lin Wenbai, the young master of the Zhongyi House of Tianlan Kingdom. They're close and appear to be sweet on each other. Qin Ting raised an eyebrow, feeling like breaking up a happy couple. Interesting, Qin Ting asked abruptly, which sect does the Tianlan Kingdom belong to? That the eastern wasteland was vast, filled with countless kingdoms. He'd never even heard of Tianlan Kingdom. Niayu explained, the Tianlan Kingdom is under the control of the Mingxin sect, which is, in turn, a vassal of our Xiantian sect. Qin Ting nodded slightly and instructed, summon the leader of the Mingxin sect and tell him to await me at the Xiantian sect. Niayu bowed. Yes, sir. Then, he retreated. The Mingxin sect was a large sect, considered a second-tier power in the eastern wasteland. It controlled dozens of countries and held territory spanning tens of thousands of miles. The leader of the Mingxin sect was a formidable figure at the divine palace level, well known throughout the eastern wasteland, yet, Qin Ting had casually summoned him to wait at the Xiantian sect. That was the extent of Qin Ting's authority. He was a top figure in the eastern wasteland hierarchy, the holy son of Xiantian. The future headmaster. Backed by the entire Xiantian sect. Qin Ting may not have had this kind of influence before, but after ascending to the position of Holy Son, he absolutely did. Now, Qin Ting represented the voice of the Xiantian sect. His will was the will of the Xiantian sect. A few days later, Qin Ting and his entourage returned to the Xiantian sect. At the gate of the Xiantian sect was a massive square, packed with disciples ready to welcome their holy son. The airship approached and docked at the Yunhai Pier, not far from the mountain gate. The moment Qin Ting appeared, countless disciples prostrated themselves, shouting in unison, "Welcome the Holy Son! Welcome to the Holy Son! Welcome to the Holy Son!" Qin Ting nodded slightly, a smile playing on his lips as he surveyed the hundreds of thousands of bowing disciples. A feeling of triumph swelled in his chest. What would it be like to have the entire eastern wasteland bowing before him? A burning ambition ignited in Qin Ting's eyes. Qin Ting smiled, gently raised a hand, and said softly, "No need for such formality." Instantly, hundreds of thousands of disciples felt a gentle force lifting them. They looked at Qin Ting with sincerity, deeply impressed by the Holy Son's power. Qin Ting had demonstrated this skill in Dongshu City, but this was the Xiantian sect. These were hundreds of thousands of disciples. Each and every one a hero, with countless powerhouses in the divine will realm. Such a display was unheard of. The three elders from the divine palace realm standing behind Qin Ting exchanged glances, a hint of fear in their eyes. Even they couldn't pull that off. The holy son of Xiantian, in their eyes, had become an enigma. Chapter 85. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin Ting left the group and headed back to Taishu Peak. Elder Lu, the law enforcement elder, had been waiting there for a while. As soon as he saw Qin Ting, he hurried forward to greet him. Lu considered himself Qin Ting's right-hand man, so he felt it was beneath him to greet Qin Ting with the rest of the crowd at the mountain gate. Instead, he'd come to Taishu Peak to give his respects privately. A confidant had to act like a confidant. Seeing Qin Ting, Elder Lu rushed up and bowed deeply. "Greetings, young master. Welcome back to the clan." Qin Ting smiled. "You're not just anyone, Elder Lu, no need for the formalities. After all, Elder Lu had been with him through thick and thin, they shared a bond. Qin Ting felt a certain closeness to him, hearing Qin Ting's words, not just anyone. Elder Lu felt like he'd just downed a glass of fine wine. The old man's smile practically turned his face into a shriveled prune. He beamed. Young master's exploits in Xuandu immortal domain were amazing. They rocked the eastern wasteland. Even we heard about them back at Xiantian sect. Qin Ting chuckled to himself. Elder Lu was quite the storyteller. Sure, he'd pulled off some big moves in Xuandu immortal domain, like killing the holy son of Yuanshi, turning him into an external incarnation, scheming to wipe out all the Yuanshi sect disciples, and pinning the blame on the ancient palace, but nobody knew about any of that. How could that possibly rock the eastern wasteland? Still, Elder Lu's shameless flattery pleased Qin Ting and put him in a good mood. Even though Niayu was loyal to Qin Ting and trustworthy, he was old-fashioned and couldn't butter anyone up to save his life. Elder Lu's flattery was a refreshing change of pace. Qin Ting looked at Elder Lu's prune-like smile and sighed inwardly. He finally understood why emperors were so fond of sycophants and yes-men throughout history. Being flattered felt pretty good. Elder Lu exchanged a few more pleasantries with Qin Ting, then wisely took his leave. Niayu looked at Elder Lu with contempt. He'd never liked flatterers. Elder Lu noticed Niayu's disdainful gaze, and snorted to himself. Humph. You've only been serving the young master for a few years. When it comes to loyalty, I, Lu Feng, am second to none. Qin Ting noticed the tension between Niayu and Elder Lu but didn't care. A little discord among his subordinates wouldn't hurt him. It was a way to manage them. Besides, Niayu and Elder Lu weren't on terrible terms. They'd fought side by side in the underground palace. They shared a certain camaraderie. After Elder Lu left, Niayu stepped forward and said, "Sir, the headmaster of Mingxin sect has arrived and is waiting in the Sifang pavilion." Qin Ting nodded slightly and said calmly, "Send him over." Niayu replied, "Yes, sir." Xiantian sect, Sifang pavilion. Pei Tao, the headmaster of Mingxin sect, was waiting to be summoned by Holy Sun Xiantian. He was a nervous wreck. He had no idea why Holy Sun Xiantian had summoned him. 7 days earlier, he'd received a notice from Xiantian sect that Holy Sun Xiantian wanted to see him, and he'd rushed from Mingxin sect to Xiantian sect without delay. Just then, an elder of the Xiantian sect came in and said with a smile, "Headmaster Pei, the Holy Sun has summoned you." Pei Tao hurriedly said, "Please, elder, lead the way." The elder of the Xiantian sect smiled. Of course, of course. He treated Pei Tao with respect. After all, a powerful man in the divine palace realm deserved respect wherever he went. The Xiantian sect elder took Pei Tao towards Taishu Peak. Along the way, they passed countless spiritual mountains. Pei Tao was amazed. It was truly the holy land of the eastern wasteland. Every single spiritual mountain here was more beautiful and magnificent than the main peak of his own Mingxin sect. When they arrived at Taishu Peak, Pei Tao was even more blown away by the scenery. As a powerful man from the divine palace, he was well-traveled, but Taishu Peak still astounded him. He saw a striking mountain peak, like a sharp sword piercing the sky, thousands of feet high above the clouds. Countless auspicious clouds swirled halfway up the mountainside, forming a sea. When the sun shone, the golden light glittered brilliantly. The spiritual energy here was incredibly rich. This was a true immortal treasure. Entering Taishu Peak, Niayu was already waiting. After greeting Pei Tao, he led him to Qin Ting. After passing through numerous palaces, Pei Tao saw a handsome young man in a rich robe sitting on the main seat in a large hall, with a relaxed expression on his face. He looked like he was deep in thought. Pei Tao recognized him as Holy Sun Xiantian. He'd attended the Holy Sun ceremony as the leader of a vassal force. Pei Tao hurried forward to salute. Pei Tao, the headmaster of Mingxin sect, greets the Holy Sun. Qin Ting looked at Pei Tao, stood up, returned the salute, and said with a smile, "You're welcome, Headmaster Pei, please sit down." Pei Tao was a powerful man in the divine palace realm, and Qin Ting showed him some respect. After some small talk, Pei Tao asked a little nervously, "May I ask what the Holy Sun has ordered?" Qin Ting didn't answer immediately, but tapped his fingers on the table, as if deep in thought. tick-tock, tick-tock, with each tap of Qin Ting's fingers, Pei Tao's anxiety grew. Chapter 86. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Headmaster Pei eyed Qin Ting nervously, wondering why he'd been summoned. His anxiety mounted. He hadn't felt this way even when he'd reached the Divine Palace realm. Finally, Qin Ting spoke. Headmaster Pei, the Tianlan sect, isn't that your Mingxin sect's little puppet kingdom? Headmaster Pei's mind raced. What was the Holy Sun getting at? This wasn't just idle chit-chat. And Tianlan Kingdom was a nobody. Could the Holy Sun want Tianlan Kingdom? Nah. If he wanted it, he'd just tell the Mingxin sect, and they'd hand it over. No need to call him in. Besides, Tianlan was a tiny, unremarkable country. Nothing special geographically, no rare spiritual plants, so what did the Holy Sun want with it? He knew the Holy Sun had 5 major dynasties showering him with tribute every year. He wouldn't bother with Tianlan. Could it be? Oh, hell, Headmaster Pei felt a chill. Had Tianlan Kingdom somehow offended the Holy Sun? If they had, that was a disaster. Tianlan country was their subsidiary. Would the Holy Sun take it out on the Mingxin sect? He might be all smiles now, but these types were notorious for their volatile moods. Headmaster Pei shot to his feet. Yes, Holy Sun, it is under our control. But I swear, the Mingxin sect had no idea what Tianlan was up to. He rushed on before Qin Ting could speak. If Tianlan offended you, it's unforgivable. The Mingxin sect will obliterate Tianlan from the eastern wasteland immediately. Emperor to commoner, no one spared to appease your anger. He pleaded, Holy Sun, our loyalty is absolute. We knew nothing of Tianlan's transgressions. Qin Ting stared, bewildered. Was this guy crazy? He just asked about Tianlan's connection to the Mingxin sect, and this was the reaction. Then it clicked. He understood Headmaster Pei's fear. He sighed inwardly at the weight of his own reputation. One sentence, and a powerful sect leader was quaking in his boots. The man was ready to wipe out a whole country, millions of lives, just to avoid getting on his bad side. Qin Ting smiled and shook his head. Master Pei, relax. Sit down. Pei slowly lowered himself back into the chair, but only perched on the edge, craning his neck toward Qin Ting. Seeing his nervousness, Qin Ting decided to put him at ease. Don't worry, Headmaster Pei. Tianlan Kingdom hasn't offended me. Headmaster Pei visibly relaxed, exhaling. He looked at Qin Ting, confused. Then, why did the Holy Sun bring up Tianlan Kingdom? Qin Ting cut to the chase. Do you know of a woman named Su Jitong? Headmaster Pei racked his brain. There was someone like that in Tianlan Kingdom. Reaching the Yuandan realm in 6 years was big news. After all, Headmaster Pei nodded. Yes, a woman from a prince's house in Tianlan Kingdom. Reached the Yuandan realm quickly, but it's too late for her to amount to anything significant. The Mingxin sect doesn't pay her any attention. Qin Ting was blunt. She's talented. Qualified to be one of my consorts. Headmaster Pei's eyes widened. A consort to the Holy Sun Xiantian. What luck! From Headmaster Pei's point of view, being a maid to the Holy Sun would be an honor. A consort? That was prestigious. Dynasties and prominent families would kill for their princesses and daughters to be consorts to Holy Sun Xiantian. And the Holy Sun wanted her. Headmaster Pei realized this was a request. Holy Sun Xiantian needed the Mingxin sect to handle this. It was simple, yet complicated. The Mingxin sect could order Tianlan Kingdom to send Su Jitong over, but what if she held a grudge? She could whisper poison in the Holy Sun's ear. But if handled well, it could cement the Mingxin sect's connection to Holy Sun Xiantian. Su Jitong's family couldn't offer her any support. But the Mingxin sect could. They could act as her backers in Taishu Peak, and she could serve as their connection to the Holy Sun. Headmaster Pei thought, this must be done right. Chapter 87. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Headmaster Pei gave a solemn nod. Rest assured, Holy Sun, he said. The Mingxin sect will handle this, no question. Qin Ting nodded, not nearly as worked up about Su Zhidong, despite him being a chosen one, as he'd been about Yi Qiu. The circumstances were different. After all, he and Yi Qiu were locked in a deadly feud, which made Qin Ting desperate to eliminate him. Su Zhidong, on the other hand, was a stranger. They had no beef, so Qin Ting didn't need to kill him. Plus, the whole forced marriage thing was kind of amusing. Headmaster Pei and Qin Ting exchanged a few more pleasantries before Pei excused himself. He was eager to return to the Mingxin sect and strategize with the elders. Once Pei was gone, Qin Ting turned to Niayu. Anything new from Yuan Shimen and the ancient shrine? Niayu stepped forward. Not yet, sir. Yuan Shimen and the ancient shrine are still at peace, but tensions are definitely rising along their border. Qin Ting nodded. Yuan Shimen and the ancient shrine were both powerful holy places in the eastern wasteland. A war between them would be a long and drawn-out affair. Heh, Qin Ting mused, sounds like things are about to get real ugly at the Yuanshi Gate ancient shrine. Meanwhile, in the eastern wasteland, at the ancient shrine, the entire sect was built around a sprawling palace. This palace was truly immense, dwarfing even ordinary countries. Legend had it that the palace was a magical artifact left behind by the gods. Centuries ago, the founders of the ancient shrine had established their sect there, naming it in honor of the palace. Over the eons, countless sects had risen and fallen, but the ancient shrine stood firm, a beacon overlooking the entire eastern wasteland. Every member of the ancient shrine was steeped in the sect's long and illustrious history, taking immense pride in their legacy. Lately, however, the atmosphere within the ancient shrine had been grim, a dark cloud hanging over the entire community. Yuan Shimen was accusing the ancient shrine of orchestrating the deaths of several of their disciples. The accusation sent shockwaves through the ancient palace. In the ancient shrine's meeting hall, Headmaster Tianjizi, the 15 elders, and the ancient holy son had gathered to discuss the crisis. One of the elders scoffed, Yuan Shimen's just looking for an excuse. They see the ancient shrine as weak and are trying to find a way to take us over. Another elder frowned. But they've made their accusations. What's the ancient shrine supposed to do? The ancient holy son spoke, his voice like ice. If they want to fight, let's give them one. An elder turned to the holy son. Were you involved in this? The ancient holy son frowned, his voice hard. If I had done it, I'd own up to it. But I didn't. The elder nodded, taking the holy son at his word. He himself doubted that their holy son would be behind this. Stroking his beard, he said, looks like Yuan Shimen's been planning this for a while. The ancient holy son, sensing the elder's ready acceptance, felt a flicker of annoyance. Is it really so hard to believe I'd do something like that? Another elder frowned, shaking his head. Yuan Shimen is powerful. I fear the ancient shrine can't stand against them. Another elder sneered, so we just roll over and die. The first elder retorted angrily, when did I say we should roll over and die? Don't put words in my mouth, Elder Chen. Elder Chen shot back, equally heated, Yuan Shimen's power is irrelevant. Our ancient shrine has stood in the eastern wasteland for hundreds of thousands of years. We've weathered far worse. A bunch of upstarts with a 70,000-year history don't scare me, Elderly. What are you afraid of? Elderly, now thoroughly enraged, launched into a full-blown argument with Elder Chen. The meeting hall devolved into chaos. Tianjizi, the headmaster of the ancient shrine, who had been sitting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened them, his gaze sweeping over the room. The air seemed to freeze. The elders, intimidated, fell silent, fixing their gaze on the headmaster. This was the power of a virtual god. Tianjizi spoke calmly, monitor the border closely. Starting today, summon all disciples above the Yuan Dan realm and put the ancient shrine on high alert. He added, with a cold snort, why so nervous? The heavenly book, our ancient shrine's sacred artifact, isn't just for show. The elders' faces brightened at the mention of the sacred artifact. That's right. Our ancient palace has the sacred artifact book. The sacred artifact's power is great. The virtual god can activate the holy weapon. One can fight two. Who will win at that time is yet to be determined. The elders rose and bowed in unison. Yes, sacred artifacts were creations of heaven, treasures formed by the very fabric of existence. Each one was a magic weapon of immense power, exceeding the scope of mere magic. The Xiantian sect possessed the Haotian mirror and the Shenyuan sword, the ancient shrine had the Book of Heaven, the Chenyuan sect had the Fantian seal, the Xingyue sect had the star-picking platform, and the Chaoxing sect had the Zhoutian formation. Of the 6 holy places, only Yuanshimen lacked a sacred artifact, being a relatively new establishment, thus, despite its power and status as the second strongest Holy Land in the eastern wasteland, Yuanshimen was often the butt of jokes among the other holy places. It was often dismissed as a mud-legged nouveau riche, with the ancient shrine leading the charge. Chapter 88. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just as the ancient shrine was embroiled in its own infighting, the Yuanshi Gate was caught up in a similar debate. However, their argument wasn't about whether to fight, but how, when, and to what extent. Inside the Yuanshi Gate's presbytery, the 3 most powerful virtual gods of the sect were present, along with the Holy Son of Yuanshi, the 2 powerhouses from the Divine Palace serving penance guarding the deep undersea hell, and the 19 other Divine Palace powerhouses. 1. Elder of the Yuanshi sect slammed his fist. This is a disgrace to the Yuanshi Gate. We need to wipe the ancient shrine off the map. Another elder frowned. We've taken a hit, sure, but it's not like we're crippled. Is a full-blown war with the ancient shrine really worth it? A third chimed in, exactly. We can absorb the loss of those 100-odd genius disciples. We've got incredibly long lifespans. We can rebuild until the next Xuandu immortal realm opens. Yeah, another added, a small-scale war, forcing the ancient shrine to pay a hefty compensation in resources, that's the ticket. An elder with a sharp glint in his eyes scoffed, you're all thinking too small. You're fixated on the losses from a war, but you're blind to the consequences of not fighting. Before anyone could object, he continued, how important is the Xuandu immortal realm? How many of you rose to Divine Palace level because of it? He paused for emphasis. Quite a few, I bet. The Xuandu immortal realm doesn't open on a schedule. It could be every few centuries, or it could be every 10,000 years. If it opens in 100 years, fine, but what if it's 10,000? By then, the ancient shrine's disciples will be grown, and a few powerhouses might even emerge. What then? What does the Yuanshi Gate do? He fixed the elders who opposed total war with a piercing stare. Elders, care to gamble on that? Silence fell over the elders' council. The elders who favored a limited response suddenly looked uncomfortable. They didn't dare to gamble. The Xuandu immortal realm was far too crucial. Many of them owed their current power to it. If it opened thousands of years from now, the ancient shrine could potentially have a dozen more Divine Palace experts than the Yuanshi Gate. Not to mention altar realm powerhouses. Finally, the leader of the Yuanshi Gate, who had remained silent, spoke. Do you all know who our greatest rival truly is? The elders straightened, their faces grim. The Xiantian sect. They said in unison. Yes. While we're at odds with the ancient shrine, everyone here knows that our real enemy is the Xiantian sect. That behemoth has held the throne as the eastern wasteland's top holy land for hundreds of thousands of years. The Yuanshi Gate leader continued calmly, even with a dozen extra ancient shrine powerhouses, the ancient shrine won't overthrow the heavens while the Supreme Elder, the Great Elder, and our 3 virtual gods are still around. But the Xiantian sect wields the heavenly mirror and the Shenyuan sword, 2 sacred weapons. Do you understand? The elder's expression shifted, understanding dawning. Total war. The Yuanshi Gate was a holy land, but it lacked sacred weapons, a weakness that had always hampered its progress. The Xiantian sect boasted hundreds of thousands of years of history, over 30 Divine Palace powerhouses, 4 virtual gods, and a supreme elder in the god transformation realm, whose lifespan was anyone's guess. The Yuanshi Gate, in contrast, had only existed for 70,000 years, with 21 Divine Palace powerhouses and 3 virtual gods. At this rate, the Yuanshi Gate would eventually surpass the Xiantian sect in strength. But why did the Xiantian sect still sit atop the eastern wasteland, while the Yuanshi Gate remained in second place? It wasn't just the current disparity in power. It was the sacred weapons. The Xiantian sect had two. The Yuanshi gate had none. How could they ever hope to unseat them? Without a sacred weapon, even if the Yuanshi gate boasted more powerhouses in the future, the Xiantian sect would remain dominant. That was the power of a sacred weapon. The ancient shrine was weak, with only 15 divine palace experts and a single virtual god and its leader, Tianjizi, but that holy land possessed the most mysterious sacred weapon in the eastern wasteland, the heavenly book. If the Yuanshi gate could seize it, they could close the gap with the Xiantian sect. The ancient shrine was a child holding a priceless jewel, and this incident was the perfect excuse to take it. Otherwise, launching a war against a holy land without reason would have devastating consequences. Understanding flashed in their eyes. The elders of the Yuanshi gate exclaimed, "Destroy the ancient shrine. Seize the sacred heavenly book." The holy son of Yuanshi added, "Without destroying the ancient shrine, how can we possibly challenge the Xiantian sect?" The leader of the Yuanshi gate, Yuan Tongzi, exchanged a look with the supreme elder, Yu Wanli, and the great elder, Fang Qianhai. He nodded, his voice grave. "Gather all Yuanshi gate disciples at the core formation realm and above. Prepare for a full-scale attack on the ancient shrine. This is a war to wipe them off the face of the earth. The sacred heavenly book, the Yuanshi gate will have it." The holy son and the elders of the Yuanshi gate rose and bowed. Understood. Dark clouds gathered across the eastern wasteland. A storm was brewing. Chapter 89. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Donghuang, home to the Mingxin sect. Mingxin sect is a big deal. They control over a dozen countries, boast tens of thousands of disciples, and pack a punch with two powerhouses from the temple. In the eastern wasteland, they're considered a solid second-tier sect. Now, don't go thinking second-tier means garbage. The world's crawling with sects, more than you can shake a stick at. 99% aren't top dogs. Mingxin sect sitting pretty near the top in the eastern wasteland, and they've definitely earned their big sect stripes. Even so, Master Pei of the Mingxin sect was treading lightly and showing major respect in Qin Ting's presence. Back at Mingxin sect, he's a big shot with an aura of mystery. He's the headmaster, calling the shots for the whole sect and ruling over a dozen countries. The moment Headmaster Pei got back, he called up the other temple-level powerhouse, the Supreme Elder, looking dead serious. Then he summoned all 9 elders from the Shantai realm to the main peak. The Supreme Elder was all over him as soon as he saw him, asking, "Why did Holy Son Xiantian summon the headmaster?" The other 9 Shantai realm elders were glued to Headmaster Pei, and his serious face had them on edge. Pei realized he'd freaked them out. He gave a small smile and said, "It's not bad news." Then, he spilled the beans about what Holy Son Xiantian had told him. Everyone went quiet, chewing on what this meant for Mingxin sect. One elder chimed in, "Easy peasy. We just send a message to the Emperor of Tianlan Kingdom, and Su Zhidong will come running." Another elder flatly said, "No way. What if Su Zhidong gets resentful? We can't risk that." An elder agreed, "Exactly. Su Zhidong wouldn't dare resent Holy Son Xiantian, but she'd definitely hold it against Mingxin sect. If she whispers in the Holy Son's ear." That's what Headmaster Pei was worried about. He said grimly, "We need a flawless plan to get Su Zhidong to come willingly. We can't afford any screw-ups here. The future of Mingxin sect hinges on this." After a long pause, the Supreme Elder stroked his beard and said, "Mess this up, and we're done for. But nail it." He got all worked up. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Mingxin sect. Scratch that, it's a once-in-10,000 years shot. If we can cozy up to Holy Son Xiantian, become his trusted go-to, Mingxin sect will skyrocket. The elders all nodded, "He's right. We gotta grab this. This is our ticket to getting tight with Holy Son Xiantian." Couldn't agree more. Headmaster Pei nodded. This is Mingxin sect's #1 priority right now. We need to nail it. The elders all responded in unison. Understood. Headmaster Pei's eyes narrowed. Seems like he'd better head to Tianlan country himself to make sure things didn't go sideways. Meanwhile, back in Tianlan Kingdom, in the capital, we find ourselves at the Kangwuhu Mansion. The Kangwuhu Mansion is a major player in Tianlan. The first Kangwuhu was a war hero, buddy-buddy with the founding emperor. 28 generations later, the current Kangwu Marquis, Su Nanting, is a powerhouse in his own right, well known throughout Tianlan. The Kangwu Ho Mansion is huge, dripping with luxury. In an attic within the mansion, a young woman was practicing. A woman walked in carrying a bowl of ginseng soup. The girl opened her eyes, saw the woman, and smiled sweetly. Mom. Her mother smiled back and said, Jidong, honey, I made you some ginseng soup. All that practicing must be tiring, so come have a drink. The girl, Su Jidong, snuggled into her mom, Mrs. Lu's arms after finishing the soup, and they started chatting. Su Jidong said sweetly, Mom, you don't have to go to all this trouble in the future. Dad loves me to bits now, and I can use all the resources the Marquis Mansion has to offer. Mrs. Lu sighed softly. Yes, Jidong, you're in a good spot now. Life's getting better and better for us, huh? Su Jidong smiled, it'll keep getting better. After a few more jokes, Mrs. Lu smiled and said, has that young master from Zhongyi's mansion been around? Has he been looking for you? Su Jidong blushed and said, when Bai's been in seclusion. I heard he's about to break through to the Yuan Dan realm. Madame Lu smiled knowingly, sounds like my daughter lit a fire under him. He's probably worried his cultivation isn't good enough for you. Su Jidong playfully scolded, Mom, what are you talking about? Good enough. Mrs. Lu chuckled and admitted, to be honest, Lin Wenbai did ask when he should come to the Ho Mansion to propose. Su Jidong got so embarrassed that she ran off, yelling, Mom, I'm not listening to you anymore. You're such a tease. Oblivious to the danger ahead, Su Jidong was enjoying her happy life, unaware that a trap was closing in around her. Chapter 90. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the royal palace of the Tianlan Kingdom, the emperor, a powerful sorcerer well over 300 years old, had ruled the Tianlan Kingdom for more than a century, making him the most powerful figure in the land. As usual, the emperor was in the training hall, eyes closed in meditation. Suddenly, his eyes snapped open, a mixture of surprise and suspicion on his face. He strode out of the hall and saw a figure approaching. Recognition dawned on his face, replaced by awe. He immediately dropped to his knees, prostrating himself. Greetings, headmaster. It was Headmaster Pei of the Mingxin sect. Pei glanced down at Emperor Tianlan. No need for such formality. Rise. The emperor scrambled to his feet, trembling slightly. He couldn't fathom the reason for Headmaster Pei's visit. Typically, the Mingxin sect sent an elder from the Shintai realm to oversee matters in the Tianlan Kingdom. Tianlan was just a small, insignificant country. Headmaster Pei had never bothered to come here himself. Now that Pei was actually here in person, the emperor's mind raced, trying to understand what had happened. He ushered Headmaster Pei into the main hall. Pei took the throne without ceremony, while the emperor cautiously settled into a seat on the side. Are you familiar with a girl named Su Jidong? Pei asked, cutting right to the chase. The emperor's heart skipped a beat. He stood up, a little too quickly. Yes, Your Excellency. She's a concubine of Marquis Kangwu, here in Tianlan. She achieved Yuan Dan in just 6 years. The news has spread like wildfire. Pei nodded, already aware of this. The emperor grew increasingly uneasy, wondering what the headmaster was getting at. He couldn't imagine Pei was just making small talk. Every word from such a powerful figure held profound meaning. He leaned forward slightly, trying to sound casual. I wonder why the headmaster brings up this particular girl. Pei's answer was blunt. The holy son Xiantian wishes to take her as a concubine. The emperor's mind went blank for a moment. Who? Holy son Xiantian. The holy son of the Xiantian sect. Was this some kind of joke? He stared at Headmaster Pei, a tremor running through him. Holy son Xiantian. He repeated, barely able to believe what he was hearing. Pei wasn't surprised by the emperor's reaction. It was a far-fetched idea, even for him. He simply nodded. Yes, the holy son Xiantian. The emperor's head was spinning. Holy Sun Xiantian. He was practically a god. And he wanted Su Zhidong as his concubine. The Kangwu Marquis household must have an ancestor buried under a lucky star, more like a supernova. He straightened up. Rest assured, headmaster. I'll see to this matter personally. Pei fixed him with a level gaze. We must ensure Su Zhidong doesn't harbor any resentment. Do you understand, that the emperor was no fool? He immediately grasped Pei's concerns. Forcing Su Zhidong to go to the Holy Sun would risk incurring her wrath against the Mingxin sect or the Tianlan kingdom. The last thing they wanted was for her to complain to the Holy Sun. Even if he ignored her, some ambitious follower might attack the Mingxin sect just to curry favor with the Holy Sun's concubine. The emperor remembered a rumor. Lin Wenbai, the young master of the Zhongyi house, and Su Zhidong were childhood sweethearts and very close. This needs to be handled delicately. With a plan forming in his mind, the emperor outlined his idea to Headmaster Pei. Pei listened carefully, then nodded in approval. The emperor raised his voice, calling out towards the palace entrance, "Someone! Summon Marquis Kangwu." A eunuch's voice echoed back, "Yes, your majesty." Meanwhile, at the Kangwu Marquis estate, in a secluded courtyard, Marquis Kangwu, Sunenting, possessed immense magical power, yet he looked like a refined, middle-aged scholar. He was chatting with his concubine, Mrs. Lu, about everyday matters. Lu chuckled. Zhidong is always focused on her training. Sunenting smiled. Zhidong's talent is remarkable. I've rarely seen anything like it. It's a pity she was led astray in the past and I ignored you both. He added with a hint of regret, it's a shame she missed out on those early years of training. Otherwise, I believe Zhidong could have become a true disciple, even at Mingxin sect. Lu gently squeezed his hand. Don't beat yourself up, my lord. We were all deceived. We've been very happy these past few years. She changed the subject. What do you think of Lin Wenbai from the Zhongyi house? He grew up with Zhidong. I think he's quite fond of her. Sunenting nodded. The Zhongyi house is a good match for the Kangwu Marquis estate, and Lin Wenbai seems like a good young man. What does Zhidong think? Lu said. Zhidong is dedicated to her cultivation right now, but I believe she has a soft spot for Lin Wenbai. Sunenting stroked his beard thoughtfully. I'll speak to Uncle Zhongyi later. We'll see how things develop. Just then, a maid arrived. Lord Marquis, a messenger from the palace. His Majesty requests your presence. Chapter 91. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Su Nanting arrived at the palace with a knot of worry in his stomach. Lately, he'd felt like an outsider at court. The emperor seemed distant, so this sudden summons felt like a mixed bag. He entered the main hall to find Emperor Tianlan standing with his hands clasped behind his back. Deep in thought, Su Nanting bowed. Your Majesty, Marquis Tsangwu, Su Nanting, is here at your service. Hearing him, Emperor Tianlan rushed forward, stopping him from completing the bow. The emperor flashed a disingenuous grin. Su, my dear minister, no need for such formalities. We're practically brothers, aren't we? Su Nanting eyed the emperor, who used to be so imposing but was now acting so chummy. Something was definitely up. Emperor Tianlan grasped Su Nanting's hand, still smiling. Su, I have some fantastic news for you. Jealousy flickered in the emperor's eyes. His daughter was going to be a consort of Holy Sun Xiantian. Holy Sun Xiantian. A titan in the entire eastern wasteland, who controlled 5 dynasties. Each dynasty was bigger than a dozen Tianlan kingdoms. Why did Su Nanting get so lucky to father such an amazing daughter? If his own daughter could get in good with Holy Sun Xiantian, he would be ecstatic. Su Nanting was baffled by the emperor's envious stare. Was the emperor jealous of him? What was going on? Emperor Tianlan dropped the act, a hint of mournfulness creeping into his voice. Su, Holy Sun Xiantian has taken a liking to your daughter, Su Zhidong, and wishes to make her his consort. Congratulations. Su Nanting's jaw dropped. Holy Sun Xiantian. He could barely believe his ears, almost thinking he'd misheard. Holy Sun Xiantian was practically a god, a legendary figure. And he wanted his daughter as a concubine? Su Nanting was speechless. Emperor Tianlong chuckled, understanding his shock. He'd reacted the same way. After a moment, Su Nanting found his voice, stammering, This is really happening? Emperor Tianlong smiled. I imagine Jitong will be thrilled. Hearing that, Su Nanting's smile faded, and a frown creased his brow. He felt he already owed his daughter so much. He knew her well enough to know that she wasn't impressed by status. Even Holy Sun Xiantian wouldn't sway her. The initial excitement subsided, and his paternal instincts kicked in. Life in those circles could be cutthroat, even more so around Holy Sun Xiantian. Could his daughter handle it with her kind heart? Would she be treated right? A wave of reluctance washed over Su Nanting. Emperor Tianlong noticed the internal battle and said softly, Su, we're talking about the Holy Sun Xiantian. Su Nanting snapped back to reality. Right, Holy Sun Xiantian, a man who could destroy a kingdom with a word. Could the Kangwu Marquis possibly refuse? He saw the coldness in the emperor's eyes. A shiver ran down his spine. If he refused, the Kangwu Marquis would likely be wiped out by morning, his daughter's future versus the lives of thousands in his household. Just then, another figure appeared before them. Emperor Tianlong bowed quickly. Headmaster. Su Nanting was stunned, staring in disbelief. It was the headmaster of Mingxin sect. Pei was actually here in person. Su Nanting hurried to bow. Headmaster Pei. Headmaster Pei glared at Su Nanting. Normally, he'd squash this ungrateful insect, but he was Su Jitong's father. If he didn't win him over, he might not be able to convince Su Jitong. Headmaster Pei said calmly, if you persuade your daughter, half of the Tianlong kingdom is yours. The Mingxin sect will back you to become emperor. Su Nanting's breath hitched, found a nation and be emperor. Su Nanting was hooked. It was the ultimate dream. Emperor Tianlong's face soured, but he didn't dare object. Headmaster Pei would obliterate him. Headmaster Pei scoffed at Emperor Tianlong's expression. He was insignificant. If the Tianlong kingdom hadn't been so compliant over the years, offering endless tributes, he would have already replaced Emperor Tianlong with Su Nanting. While Su Nanting was a good father, he was also powerful and ambitious. Faced with such a temptation, he barely hesitated. He nodded. Rest assured, Headmaster Pei, I'll take care of it. He remembered what Lu had said about Mr. Lin Wenbai of the Zhongyi mansion. He frowned. But Lin Wenbai from Uncle Zhongyi's mansion. Emperor Tianlong said coolly, I'll straighten things out with Uncle Zhongyi. Chapter 92. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the drive home, Su Nanting was still buzzing with excitement. Jiang Wo was going to be emperor. He could almost feel the rush of adrenaline thinking about his future subjects bowing and shouting, Long live the emperor. Then his thoughts turned to his daughter, Su Jitong, and a knot formed in his stomach, but almost immediately, his resolve hardened. This was the opportunity of a lifetime for the Kangwu Marquis mansion. Besides, even if she was a concubine, it was all about who she was a concubine to. Being a concubine to Holy Sun Xiantian was a much bigger deal than being the wife of some sect leader. Headmaster Pei had made it clear that he wanted the Mingxin sect to be Su Jitong's support network, her connection to Holy Sun Xiantian. This was a major player. A behemoth controlling over a dozen countries, a territory stretching for millions of miles. Headmaster Pei wouldn't have given him the time of day before, but now they were laughing and swapping stories over wine. All because Holy Sun Xiantian wanted his daughter as a concubine. Su Nanting's eyes blazed with determination. Back at the Ho mansion, Su Nanting went straight to his wife, Mrs. Lu. The emperor hasn't summoned the Marquis alone in years, Mrs. Lu said. Why now? It's huge, Su Nanting replied. Mrs. Lu's eyes widened. What is it? What's going on? Su Nanting countered. Have you heard of Holy Sun Xiantian? Of course, Lu said. I may be a homebody, but everyone knows Holy Sun Xiantian, the star of the Xiantian sect. He's the most promising young cultivator in the entire eastern wasteland. That's right. Holy Sun Xiantian has taken a liking to Zhidong and wants her as his concubine. Lu was stunned, repeating, Holy Sun Xiantian wants Zhidong. How does he even know about Zhidong? That she was genuinely shocked. Holy Sun Xiantian was legendary, and she'd only ever heard stories about him. It felt surreal that someone so high up would want their daughter as a concubine. Su Nanting said, believe it or not, it's true. The headmaster of the Mingxin sect came to Tianlan country specifically for this. Lu, ever the mother, was consumed with worry, her voice trembling. She asked, are you really going to send Zhidong? Will she be safe as Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine? She'll just be a concubine, after all. As a concubine herself, she knew their precarious position, entirely dependent on the master's favor. Su Nanting frowned. Don't be ridiculous. She'll be Holy Sun Xuantian's concubine. Princesses from great dynasties would kill to be in her place. Zhidong becoming his concubine is a stroke of luck for our family, and for her. Mrs. Lu couldn't shake her unease, her eyes started to well up. Su Nanting continued, this isn't just about our family. If we mess this up, the Kangwu Marquis mansion could be ruined. We can't afford to turn down Holy Sun Xiantian. That struck Lu like a bolt of lightning. Master Ho. She gasped, terrified. Su Nanting then added, if Zhidong goes willingly, Mingxinzong has promised to back me in establishing my own country and becoming emperor. And you will be the queen. Overwhelmed, she just mumbled, I'm just afraid Zhidong will suffer. Su Nanting reassured her, Mingxinzong said they'll fully support Zhidong and be her allies on the outside. Don't worry. With a powerful sect like Mingxin sect behind her, she'll be able to hold her own with Holy Sun. But even as he said it, Su Nanting wasn't so sure. Mingxin sect was powerful, but Holy Sun Xiantian was surrounded by extraordinary women. He'd heard that his closest confidant was Mu Qingyi, the daughter of the Qianyuan sect's leader. That was a true woman of influence. Then there were the two true disciples of Xiantian's sect, who were also close to Holy Sun Xiantian. Headmaster Pei of Mingxin sect had to treat them with the utmost respect. In comparison, Mingxinzong just didn't measure up. Su Nanting tried to sound confident, think about it. Holy Sun Xiantian is the man everyone wants to serve. Xiantian sect is the holy land of the eastern wasteland, with magical techniques unparalleled in the world. Tianlan country is just a tiny backwater. You don't want Zhidong's talent to be wasted, do you? Mrs. Lu finally started to come around. But Zhidong seems gentle, but she has a strong will inside. Su Nanting smiled. Darling, Zhidong has always respected you more than anyone and listened to you well. She'll listen to you on this, too. Lu hesitated. But what about the young master from Uncle Zhongyi's mansion? It seemed like there was something between Zhidong and him. Su Nanting scoffed. Don't worry about him. Uncle Zhongyi knows what's good for him.